my playfulness,
my beauty,
my power.
my life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied.
Hi, Lynn Barney here at the 3rd Annual Earthport Film Festival, sponsored by PortMedia and Transition Newburyport. It's a beautiful evening in Newburyport. We have some great film makers here this evening that are going to be sharing their films with us, as well as making an audience favorite as well. So it's just a great time to be here. This is Lynn Barney at the Earthport Film Festival, and right now I'm going to interview Sarah Hayden, who is the Executive Director of PortMedia. This is the 3rd Annual Earthport Film Festival. Can you tell me a little bit about how it got started and what your hopes are for this year?
Well, at PortMedia, we've been talking about wanting to do a festival. We had wanted to do it for a couple of years, and Elizabeth had also been thinking about wanting to do a film festival sort of centered around Earth Day with her group Transition Newburyport, and Elizabeth and I have worked together for years and years and years, and she had brought up the idea to a previous staff person, and we just thought it was a great idea. So we got it started, and the first year we did have some awards that were really helpful in attracting some films, and we had some wonderful, wonderful films. Last year we also got a lot of really wonderful films, all very different from all around the world, and this year we went with Without a Box, which is a place where a lot of filmmakers actually look to submit their films, which was very helpful in getting a lot of new filmmakers to submit their films, as well as some returning filmmakers, which is really exciting that some of them are sending more films.
And can you tell us a little bit about the judges who had to go through all of these films and come up with some really tough decisions, I'm sure?
Yes, so Elizabeth Marcus, of course, is a judge, and Andrew Love, who is our community production and training manager from PortMedia, actually helped Elizabeth kind of do our criteria, like what they're looking for, because Andrew is a filmmaker himself. In his spare time from PortMedia, he actually does make films, so he had a really good idea of what to look for. And then our third judge is Loren Healy from the high school, who is the president of the Environmental Club, who's really awesome, and she's here tonight with her model roof, which has been built at the compost facility, so she's here to talk about that, but she was one of the judges as well.
And today I'm interviewing Loren Healy. She's a junior at Newburyport High School, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what it was like to be a judge here for the film festival, as well as the green roofs and stormwater mitigation project that you've been working on. Hi, Loren.
Hello.
So tell me first, how did you become a judge for the film festival?
Well, I'd worked with Elizabeth through the Alchemical Garden, and then she knew I was really into the environment, and so she asked me if I'd like to be a judge.
And what was that experience like?
It was really cool to see all the films instead of just the ones that are filmed showed here, because you get a lot more of a variety.
And can you tell us what your favorite film was?
I really liked Young Ice, and also The River Red, I think. Yeah.
And what was it about those two films that really inspired you or got you hooked?
I really liked for Young Ice. It was about climate change, and it just really gave a very good explanation of it, using both scientific terms and terms that everybody can understand. And I also liked The River Red because it was very emotional as well.
So can you tell us a little bit about your Green Roofs project?
Sure. So I did this on the Compost Center in Newburyport. I did it for my science fair project this year and last year. And I built a green roof on a shed at the Compost Center. And a green roof is when you put soil and plants on top of a roof. And so I found out that they provide a lot of benefits. They help with heating and cooling costs. They also help to regulate stormwater runoff, which prevents flooding and also decreases pollutants in the water.
Now, is there any concern about the weight of the green roofs?
So there is. They are much heavier than asphalt roofs. It's definitely a lot cheaper to build them when you're doing new construction because it's very expensive to retrofit the building to add the structural support.
And can you define or tell me a little bit about stormwater runoff?
So basically this is when there's a really large rainstorm or a lot of snowmelt. And in cities where there's a lot of impervious surfaces, such as roofs and roads, this means there's no longer enough vegetation to absorb the water. And so because of that, after a heavy rainfall, the water isn't absorbed and it causes flooding.
So do you have ideas for other places around Newburyport that these types of green roofs could be utilized?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited because I've been trying to kind of outreach and get green roofs in Newburyport, and I might be working on a project with Dave Hall to incorporate green roofs into a new building a building complex he's building.
Wow, that is so exciting. So in terms of thinking about your future, do you have an idea of what you might be heading into?
So I definitely know I want to go into science. I'm not sure if I want to do biology or engineering yet, but I think as long as it's in science, I'll definitely be happy.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Loren. It's really inspiring to see you doing this and being a part of the community.
Thank you.
My name is Sarah Hayden. I'm the executive director at PortMedia, and I just would like to recognize a few people here today and say a few words before we get started with our films. We're lucky to have 3 filmmakers here today. Miho Ida, who has brought the movie The Sacred Place Where Life Begins, Gweechan Women Speak. Derek Halquist, who is the winner of our short film, Young Ice, and we also have Casey Atkins, who did the Plum Island film Rise and Fall. The 3 filmmakers will be here after for a question and answer, so I hope you all can stay and ask questions that you have about how the films were made or any questions that you might have.
Lynn Varney here at the Earthport Film Festival, and I'm speaking with one of the filmmakers, Casey Atkins, and her film is about Plum Island, Rise and Fall. Thank you for coming tonight, Casey.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Can you tell us how you got started in documentary filmmaking?
Well, I'm actually a photographer. I went to school for photojournalism originally, and kind of all photographers are getting into video these days, it seems, in one way or another, so it was somewhat of a natural transition to just kind of move into film from there.
Is this your first film, or have you done others?
I've done a bunch of short films before, not something quite like this before, I guess I would say. But I've done more of that kind of work since then.
So how did you come up with the idea to do something on Plum Island and Rise and Fall?
Well, this was actually part of a competition called the International Documentary Challenge, which I participated in with 2 friends last spring. And the idea is that you have to make a documentary film within 5 days. You get your kind of theme or topic on the beginning of the first day, and then you have 5 days to make a short film. So it's a pretty crazy time frame to try and do something like that in, but it's a lot of fun and a chance to kind of push yourself to do something different. And we had been given the genre of doing something that was with nature or environmental or something like that, and a friend of mine knew someone on the island, and so that's how we ended up kind of going out there. I'd heard about the erosion issue, so I knew that was kind of a hot topic right now, so that's how we ended up doing it.
And how long was the film supposed to be for the challenge that you were doing?
For the challenge, it had to be between 4 and 7 minutes long, so not very long.
Okay. And so what was the process like? How did it go for you?
So we spent the first day just kind of brainstorming topics, and we didn't really know what to do. And by the end of the first day, we'd kind of nailed down that we wanted to do something on Plum Island. And the next 2 days, we spent interviewing various people and kind of going out to the island and shooting footage and things like that. And I think we actually did too many interviews. In the end, we did 7 in total, and we didn't even end up using them all. But that's the kind of thing when you're not really sure what your story is right away, you kind of are trying to cover all your bases. And then the last couple days we just spent editing the film, and then uploaded it on the last night. So it was all done pretty quickly.
So how many hour days were those for you?
Those were getting pretty long. I think I was up pretty late a couple of those nights. The editing process got a bit long.
And Derek had mentioned that with Young Ice, for him, the actual theme of the film didn't come out until he was doing that editing process.
Yeah, I think, we definitely did a lot of kind of brainstorming once we got back with our footage in terms of like what did we want to use. And as I said, we had 7 interviews, and I think we ended up only using 4 of them. So we printed everything out and we highlighted things and literally spread it all across the floor of my office and started putting things into different piles to try and figure out how to assemble the film. And that's how we kind of got to the final version.
So do you have another project that you've started to work on, or are you planning ideas?
I'm actually continuing to work on this piece, and I have been since then. You know, when we filmed the footage that we did for this, it was literally the week before the whole disaster out there where all of the houses fell in, and I had thought at the time, wow, this is a really interesting project, I'd love to continue it anyway. So the next week I went back out and I called one of the people that we'd interviewed for the film, and because I was supposed to meet up with her, and she said, I can't talk to you right now, my neighbor's house is falling into the ocean. And I went, oh my God, can I come over? And I ended up hanging out on her porch for the rest of the day, and the 2 houses on either side of them went in. So I spent some time talking with her and her husband and a few other people that lived in the area, and I'd like to put together kind of a longer version that addresses the issue of kind of what happened when all the houses went in, and just goes a little bit more in depth into this issue, because I think you couldn't really do it justice within a 7-minute time frame.
Hi, Lynn Varney here at the Earthport Film Festival with one of our filmmakers, Miho Ida. Hi, Miho.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you so much for coming today and talking about your film. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in filmmaking?
Sure. So actually, I am a teacher. So filmmaking is something that I do on the side of my real job. So I think this is something that I started by just me being an outdoor educator. I don't see people like me, meaning women of color, who's pursuing environmental or outdoor education or even in the field. So I really wanted to get role models who look, sound, live like me, so that my students, especially students of color, they see somebody who look like them doing amazing thing in their community and environment. So that's how I got really interested in social media and eventually filmmaking.
Can you tell us a little bit about the film you have in today's program?
Yeah, so my film is called The Sacred Place Where Life Begins, Guchan Women Speak. So this film was made in 2010 when I had a grant to visit this Arctic native people called Guchan people. And the reason I visited it was because I've known this oil and gas development threat issue up in our public land. It's called Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Among the environmentalists, it's a very famous issue. But I really wanted to bring out how this would impact the indigenous people, like Guchan people, because I found that it's their sacred land. But a lot of people don't know about it. So I wanted to give an opportunity for these Guchan women, especially women, who never had a voice before, to speak in front of the camera and talk to people so that we learn about this issue not only from the environmental perspective, but also from the indigenous people's perspective.
Wow, that is fascinating. Now, what subject do you teach? Does this coincide with what you are educating your classroom about?
Kind of. So my job, so I'm an environmental educator, so that's what I teach. I teach environmental science mostly, but my job is really to help our students to connect with the natural world and responsible action to sustain it. So the later part, I think it really ties with my film, because my film talks about this famous environmental issue but ends with what can we do. And then that's almost an obligation as a teacher to always make sure the kids always feel empowered to take action, whatever they can. Could be writing a letter to their senator, or organizing a community screening at their home or something like that. So I think that taking a sustainable taking action to sustain our environment, I think that's the part that overlaps with my film. Yeah.
And that seems to be exactly what your film company promotes as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So my hope is that after people watch this film, one, wow, I didn't know the Gutchan people, even these people live up in the Arctic. And two, okay, their sacred land is also threatened as, the other wildlife. But third, okay, I want to take action. So I brought petitions today, letters to President Obama. So hopefully the people who watch the film, they walk out here and they find me, then, hey, let me sign a petition. So that's kind of my hope. Yeah.
And I was also getting to the name of your film company is If
She Can Do It. Yeah, so if she can do it, you can too.
And I imagine that you are asking all of us to believe that and take part.
Absolutely. And I also want people to know that, filmmaking is not my real job, but I could still make something like 20 minutes documentary. And I think a lot of times that we put the boundary on our own, like we make a limitation in our mind and on our own. So I hope that, when people see, oh, Miho's real job is not a filmmaking, so if she can do that, maybe I can make, something like that in my own community, what kind of, issues that we have. It could be a minute video, something like that. But I hope that's something I wanted people to walk away with too.
That is absolutely fabulous. Thank you so much, Miho, for coming and sharing your film.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Hi, Lynn Varney here at the Earthport Film Festival, and I'm speaking with Derek Halquist. He is the one of the filmmakers here who has a film, Young Ice, which did win the short film award of 20 minutes or less.
Right.
Congratulations, Derek.
Thank you very much. It's very honored.
So first of all, I'd like to know, how did you get started making documentaries?
It actually started a long time ago when I was in middle school. Computers really just started to make their entrance into the schoolroom, and there was a new program called Multimedia, which I had joined. And there was a school strike going on, and one of the teachers said, hey, you should take this camera, and this is how you turn it on, this record, and you should go film the strike. And after 2 days, I was really into it. And on the third day I was filming, one of the scabs was a college student, and him and his friend thought it would be a funny idea to get an electric guitar in a pickup truck and play an AC/DC song as they peeled out of this, elementary school parking lot. And one of the teachers said, did you get that? You have to go to the news station right now so they can air that. I just did what they told me, and sure enough, that night it was the top story. They used the footage, courtesy my name. It was kind of this incredible experience, and the strike was over the next morning. So it's one of those rare tangible moments where you can see that media has incredible power when it's used properly. So I've been hooked ever since.
Yeah, pretty inspiring for a young star to have that be happening. I've also heard that you like to take things that have been swept under the rug and bring them out to the light. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'm working on a feature film now all about that called Denial. And, it's a lot of personal family stories that, most families would just go their whole lives without talking about. So I think a lot of it is a personal story, as well as noticing how dangerous it is when things aren't brought out in the open. In Vermont, there's a very, very big heroin epidemic right now. And, that for years and years, it was a problem, but no one was talking about it. And things in life are often exponential. It starts small, then it's bigger, then it's huge, then it's massive, and then it's really hard to control at that point. So if you keep things out in the open and transparent, it's a little harder for those things to escalate. So.
Can you tell us about how you came about the idea of doing Young Ice, and then what the process was like for you?
Well, originally this story, and it still might be, is a part of this bigger film that I'm talking about. But it was really just happenstance where I was at sort of a Thanksgiving dinner, I think, with Mary's family. And Mary's stepfather, my wife Mary, is actually a climate scientist, atmospheric chemist is his exact title. And he told me this story about, every 5 or 10 years, he goes up with this custom-built bush plane that he has filled with, all this equipment to measure and take samples from the atmosphere in Alaska. I'm like, this is incredible. This is like, this is like a real Indiana Jones, like going up into these places that, are very dangerous and absolutely, completely different, and you wouldn't even think it was on Earth, and so, he knew I was a camera operator, and he said, well, why don't you bring a camera up? And I'm going up this spring. So, I went up there and had no idea what I was doing and for a story, and just kind of followed what I thought would be a good story, and then went back and edited it. So Young Ice really came to be in the edit room, going through all the local stories. Everybody kept saying Young Ice over and over again, so that's why I named it that.
What other films have you had a hand in making?
I worked on a film that actually is winning a Peabody Award tomorrow. I don't know when this is going to air, but the 19th is when the Peabody Awards are. It's called The House I Live In, and I was one of 2 directors of photography on it. And it was an incredible film, again, about something, the drug war, that has been swept under the carpet. And Eugene Jarecki is this just powerhouse filmmaker. That's the only way. I mean, he's very, he's like aggressive in a good way, because he knows, and he'll keep going, and he'll keep going, and he won't let up. And this film was very, very, very hard for him, because the drug war is a big, massive story, and in order to try to encompass that in a short, I mean, a feature-length documentary, but it's still a short amount of time to try to explain something that large. And he did a very good job, and the film's been getting around and really, getting people fired up about something that needs change. So.
Yeah, I know what you mean about even documentaries are short. So how, when you have so much material, how do you whittle it down to 20 minutes even? Is that a challenge for you? Yeah,
the first version I had of Young Ice, which I can't remember the original title, but it was terrible, so it doesn't matter. It was, something technical about the story. It was about 20 minutes and made no sense, because it was a lot of the stuff that I wanted to talk about and share with everybody about the experience up there, but it just, it didn't work. So we really had to home it in. And I thought, a friend of mine, another filmmaker, suggested, the Keystone Pipeline is a big discussion right now, and you should just focus on that. Because I talked about, what's in the film now, but also tried to cover all these other bases and actually explain what they're measuring. And it became very technical, and so I just had to keep cutting stuff out. So it's actually very painful. It's very painful to try to make a short film out of something like this. And how do you find the time and energy to start these documentary projects when you also are a filmmaker for other people? A film photographer. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it is having discussions while making a film, and somebody brings something up, and then a few days later you get a phone call, or I was at a dinner with my stepfather-in-law, and then there's this terrible driving voice in your head that says, you have to do this, and you're naive enough to say yes in your mind, set everything up, and then you're halfway through it and you're constantly wondering, why did I ever do this? This is terrible. I haven't seen my family in several days. I'm losing money. I don't even have that much money to start with, but that voice will nag you till the day you die if you don't follow through. And that's even more painful, so I've heard. I'd like to avoid that.
And as a filmmaker, do you get excited by trying to fit film into smaller slots, like the 5-minute category here or the 20 minutes? Are there a lot of opportunities for you to, explore that?
Not yet. This is my first. This is my first time taking something that I originally thought would be part of a bigger film and making it into a short form. And this is my second short documentary. And the thing that interests me a lot is the problem with a big feature documentary that's 90, 120 minutes, somewhere around there, is by the time the film's over, it's very difficult to keep everyone around to have a discussion. Everybody's ingested all this material and they're still maybe thinking about it, and a lot of times the last thing they want to do is, hey, let's get together and start talking about a way to change this. So I think the short form, especially with the internet and how easy it is to get access and have high definition material, even with surround sound in your lab or at home, it's definitely a great way to communicate and help move change along and engage people on a global level. So.
One of the judges for this year's film festival is a junior in high school. So do you have any words of inspiration or to any of our younger audience members?
Yes, there's a few things I really wish someone had really made more clear to me when I was this person's age, when I was younger. It's really, really important that you do things as small scope as possible. Like, just really keep it simple in the beginning, and don't worry about having super fancy cameras or an iPhone at this point would be a good way to start, and keep it very simple and don't spend any money ever. Avoid spending any money, because inevitably you will spend lots of money even with that attitude, so don't spend money.
Okay, well, thank you, Derek, so much for coming to the film festival, for making Young Ice, and congratulations on a well-deserved win.
Thank you so much. It really is an honor. Appreciate it. Thank you.
By the way, I really see women holding a camera.
I know. Isn't it great?
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
And she's very talented, too. Yeah.